In July 2021, Conor McGregor's leg snapped in half on live television in front of 20,000 people. The tibia fractured clean through at the ankle. He fell backward onto the canvas. The referee waved it off. The crowd at T-Mobile Arena went silent. The most famous fighter in mixed martial arts history sat against the cage screaming at Dustin Poirier while medics surrounded him. It was his third loss in 4 fights. 6 years earlier, in 2015, Conor McGregor was the most electrifying athlete on earth. He predicted every knockout. He filled arenas. He made more money in a single night than most fighters earn in a career. Now he hasn't won a fight since 2020. His comeback keeps getting delayed. His legacy is in question. So what happened to the man who promised to conquer 2 divisions and retire a king? Conor Anthony McGregor was born July 14, 1988, in Crumlin, a working-class suburb south of Dublin. His father Tony was a plumber. His mother Margaret worked long hours. The family didn't have much. Conor grew up in a council estate where ambition meant getting a trade and keeping your head down. He played football as a kid, showed natural athleticism, but never stuck with anything long enough to excel. At 12 he started boxing at Crumlin Boxing Club under Phil Sutcliffe. He had fast hands and a sharp tongue. Coaches noticed both. He talked endlessly about becoming a champion, about escaping Crumlin, about money and fame. Most kids said the same things. McGregor said them louder. At 16 he quit school. His parents wanted him to learn a trade. He became an apprentice plumber like his father. He hated it. He spent his days crawling under sinks in frozen apartments and his nights at the gym. In 2006, at 17, he walked into Straight Blast Gym Ireland in Dublin and met John Kavanagh, the country's first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Kavanagh was building Ireland's first serious MMA program. McGregor told him he'd be a world champion within 5 years. Kavanagh had heard it before. But McGregor stayed. He trained twice a day. He worked construction jobs to pay rent. He lived on welfare checks. His girlfriend Dee Devlin supported him when he had nothing. Ireland had no professional MMA infrastructure. No sponsorships. No gyms. Fighters trained in rented warehouse space and fought for €200 a night. McGregor didn't care. He needed a way out and he'd found one. McGregor made his amateur MMA debut in 2007. He was 18. He won by technical knockout in the first round. He fought 9 more times over the next year, won 8, and turned professional in 2008. Early footage shows a skinny kid with fast hands and awkward movement. He fought in small Irish promotions, Cage of Truth, Cage Warriors, for a few €100 per fight. He worked as a plumber between bouts to survive. In 2013, everything accelerated. He signed with Cage Warriors, a British promotion, and went on a tear. He knocked out Ivan Buchinger in December 2012 to win the featherweight title. 4 months later he moved up to lightweight and knocked out Dave Hill to win that belt too. He became the first European fighter to hold 2 Cage Warriors titles simultaneously. But it wasn't just the wins. It was the way he talked. Before the Buchinger fight he walked into the press conference wearing a tailored suit and predicted a first-round knockout. He got it. He started calling out UFC fighters by name even though he wasn't signed yet. He posted training videos on Twitter with captions like, "Coming for everything." UFC President Dana White noticed. In February 2013, White offered McGregor a contract. The UFC had tried to break into Ireland for years and failed. McGregor was their opening. He made his UFC debut in April 2013 in Stockholm against Marcus Brimage. He knocked Brimage out in 67 seconds. The UFC broadcast his post-fight interview in full. He stood in the cage, bleeding from the nose, and told the world he wasn't there to take part, he was there to take over. Fans had never seen someone talk like that and back it up immediately. He fought twice more in 2013, won both by knockout, and declared himself the future featherweight champion. Most fighters build quietly. McGregor built like a brush fire. In 2014, McGregor fought 4 times and won all 4. He headlined a UFC card in Dublin in July and knocked out Diego Brandao in front of 10,000 screaming Irish fans. It was the loudest arena the UFC had ever recorded. After the fight he grabbed the microphone and shouted, "We're not here to take part, we're here to take over." The crowd roared for 5 straight minutes. Dana White knew he had something rare. McGregor wasn't just a fighter. He was a broadcast event. In January 2015, McGregor fought Dennis Siver in Boston. He won easily. At the post-fight press conference, he interrupted the main event fighters, José Aldo and Chad Mendes, walked onto their stage uninvited, and snatched Aldo's featherweight belt off the table. Security tried to remove him. He shoved them off. The footage went viral. Dana White called it the greatest press conference moment in UFC history. The McGregor-Aldo fight was scheduled for July 2015 in Las Vegas. It became the most promoted fight in UFC history. McGregor flew to Rio de Janeiro for the press tour and walked through the crowd holding a Brazilian flag upside down. Aldo, a Brazilian legend who had held the featherweight title for nearly a decade, looked genuinely rattled. But 2 weeks before the fight, Aldo pulled out with a rib injury. Chad Mendes replaced him on short notice. McGregor took the fight anyway. He won by second-round technical knockout and claimed the interim featherweight title. In December 2015, the UFC rebooked Aldo. The fight took place at UFC 194 in Las Vegas. McGregor had predicted a first-round knockout for months. Aldo charged forward 13 seconds into the fight. McGregor threw a perfect left-hand counter. Aldo dropped face-first onto the canvas. The fight was over. Conor McGregor was the undisputed UFC featherweight champion. He had done exactly what he said he'd do. Most champions defend their title and build a reign. McGregor refused. In March 2016, he announced he was moving up to lightweight to fight Rafael dos Anjos for a second belt. Dos Anjos pulled out with a broken foot. The UFC offered Nate Diaz as a replacement at welterweight, 2 divisions above McGregor's natural weight class. McGregor accepted. He spent the press tour mocking Diaz and predicting an easy knockout. The fight took place at UFC 196 in Las Vegas. McGregor rocked Diaz in the first round but gassed out in the second. Diaz submitted him with a rear naked choke. It was McGregor's first UFC loss. The aura cracked. 5 months later, they rebooked the fight at UFC 202. McGregor trained obsessively and adjusted his strategy. He won a razor-thin majority decision. It was the most-watched UFC pay-per-view in history at the time. In November 2016, McGregor fought Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title at UFC 205 in New York, the first UFC card ever held at Madison Square Garden. McGregor dropped Alvarez 3 times in the first round and finished him in the second. He became the first fighter in UFC history to hold 2 titles simultaneously. He stood in the cage holding both belts above his head while the crowd screamed. He was 28 years old. He was at the absolute peak. Then he stopped fighting. He refused to defend either title. He demanded a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, the richest athlete in the world. The UFC stripped him of the featherweight belt in late 2016. McGregor didn't care. In August 2017, he stepped into a boxing ring in Las Vegas and fought Mayweather in front of the largest combat sports pay-per-view audience ever recorded. Mayweather won by 10th round stoppage. McGregor earned over $100 million in a single night. It was more money than he'd made in his entire MMA career combined. He returned to Dublin, bought a mansion, launched a whiskey brand, and disappeared from the octagon for nearly 2 years. By 2018, McGregor had been stripped of the lightweight title. Khabib Nurmagomedov, an undefeated Dagestani grappler, held the belt. McGregor and Khabib had been feuding for years. In April 2018, McGregor flew to New York during UFC 223 fight week and attacked a bus carrying Khabib and other fighters. He threw a metal dolly through the window. Glass shattered. Fighters were injured. McGregor was arrested, charged with assault, and banned from New York. The footage played on every sports network in the world. Dana White called it the most disgraceful incident in UFC history. But it sold. The McGregor-Khabib fight was booked for October 2018 at UFC 229 in Las Vegas. It became the most anticipated MMA fight ever. McGregor spent the press tour mocking Khabib's religion, his family, his country, and his father. Khabib barely responded. He promised to make McGregor humble. The fight was one-sided. Khabib dominated every round with relentless wrestling and ground control. In the fourth round, he locked in a neck crank and McGregor tapped. It was over. Khabib immediately leapt over the cage and attacked McGregor's cornerman. A brawl erupted. McGregor was attacked by Khabib's teammates inside the octagon. Security flooded the cage. The Nevada Athletic Commission withheld both fighters' purses and launched an investigation. The fight sold 2.4 million pay-per-views, the highest-selling combat sports event in history. But McGregor had been finished. Decisively. He took 15 months off. In January 2020, he returned against Donald Cerrone, a fan-favorite veteran on a losing streak. McGregor destroyed Cerrone in 40 seconds. He looked sharp, fast, focused. He called out Khabib for a rematch. He said he was back. But Khabib refused to fight him. The UFC booked McGregor against Dustin Poirier, a rematch of their 2014 fight. The fight took place in January 2021 on UFC Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. McGregor came out aggressive, threw heavy leg kicks, and looked confident. Poirier checked the kicks, absorbed the pressure, and in the second round landed a flurry of punches that dropped McGregor. The referee stopped it. McGregor had now lost 2 of his last 3 fights. His aura was gone. 6 months later, in July 2021, McGregor and Poirier fought again at UFC 264 in Las Vegas. McGregor had spent the build-up threatening Poirier and his wife on social media. He seemed unhinged. Desperate. The fight started and Poirier controlled it from the opening seconds. McGregor swung wildly, missed, and fell to the canvas. Poirier rained down punches from top position. McGregor threw elbows from his back but couldn't get up. With 10 seconds left in the first round, McGregor stepped backward and his left ankle buckled. The tibia snapped clean through. He collapsed. The bell rang. He sat against the cage, leg destroyed, screaming insults at Poirier while the referee waved the fight off. Poirier won by doctor stoppage. McGregor was carried out on a stretcher. He underwent surgery the next day. Doctors inserted a titanium rod through his tibia. Recovery time was estimated at a year. McGregor posted photos from the hospital bed claiming he'd be back better than ever. He posted training videos from his yacht. He launched new business ventures, bought a pub in Dublin, expanded his whiskey brand Proper No. 12, and signed endorsement deals worth tens of millions. But he didn't fight. The UFC moved on. New stars emerged. McGregor became a celebrity who used to fight, not a fighter who happened to be famous. In 2022, he was arrested in Ireland for dangerous driving. In 2023, he was accused of sexual assault in a civil lawsuit in Dublin. The trial took place in late 2024. A jury found him liable and ordered him to pay damages. McGregor denied all wrongdoing, but the verdict crushed his public image. Sponsors distanced themselves. The UFC removed him from promotional materials. His whiskey brand was sold to Proximo Spirits, netting McGregor an estimated $600 million. In 2024, McGregor was scheduled to fight Michael Chandler at UFC 303. He pulled out weeks before the fight, citing a broken toe. The fight was rescheduled, then postponed again. As of early 2025, McGregor has not fought since the broken leg in 2021. He is 36 years old. He posts training videos and promises a comeback. But the return date keeps slipping. The fire that drove him from Crumlin to the top of the world seems dimmed by wealth, distractions, and the brutal reality that the sport moved on without him. Conor McGregor changed combat sports forever. He proved that personality could sell as much as skill. He turned press conferences into theater. He made the UFC a billion-dollar company. At his peak, he was the most famous fighter on earth. He earned more money than any mixed martial artist in history. He transcended the sport. But his decline is just as instructive as his rise. McGregor built an empire on hunger. He came from nothing and fought like his life depended on every win. He outworked everyone. He believed deeper than anyone. That belief made him unstoppable. But once he made $100 million boxing Floyd Mayweather, the hunger faded. The desperation that sharpened his edge disappeared. He had everything he ever wanted. And the drive to wake up at 5 in the morning and get punched in the face for a living became harder to summon. The lesson is simple but unforgiving. The hunger that takes you to the top is nearly impossible to maintain once you reach it. Most champions lose their edge not because they got weaker, but because the reason they started fighting, money, respect, survival, no longer applies. McGregor didn't need another fight. He needed the feeling that made him take the first one. Khabib Nurmagomedov retired undefeated because he knew this. He walked away at the peak. McGregor stayed because he loved the attention more than the preparation. He loved being Conor McGregor. But being Conor McGregor required becoming Conor McGregor first, and that part, the hard part, was over. The comeback may never happen. Or it might happen and fail. Either way, his legacy is secure. He was the king. He was the needle. But the octagon doesn't care about legacy. It only cares about who you are today. And today, Conor McGregor is a champion who hasn't won a fight in 5 years.